Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to another episode of Sultans and Sneakers. I'm your host, Mahin the podcaster, and I'm joined today by my special guest, Imam Dawood Yasin, who's the director of student life and director of the Center of Ethical Living and Learning at Zaytuna College. Imam Dawood, thanks for coming on the show this morning.
You thank mashallah. First of all, walaikum salam. Thanks for having me, and it's absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Well, I think you're someone that I've wanted to have a conversation with. And I know people know, people follow this channel. They also follow the other channel, the Mad Memlukes, and we were trying to do a show there a couple years ago. And I think sometimes but there was a very specific piece of conversation I wanted to have with you that wanted to have it on this channel. And it triggered me because when the idea triggered when we met in Chicago, was it like a month ago or something? 6 weeks? Was it around 4 to 6 weeks ago? Right?
Yeah.
And I remember you were in town for we met at the Tot Leaf Center in Chicago, but you were in town to attend a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu seminar in preparation for a competition, right? And I was just like, you know what? Like, we should do a show on jiu-jitsu. But then I thought about it in a broader sense, because people know you as also the hashtag get your own halal, hunting, being in the outdoors and all that. And I was just like, you know what? There's a lot of challenges that guys have, especially like older guys, people who are married in their midlife, as far as losing themselves. And at the same time, I was having a conversation with Mike from Tot Leaf about how he's seeing a lot of guys starting to get divorced after 15, 20 years of marriage. And he's saying that a lot of the things he's seeing is that they feel like they found themselves again, and then they're a completely different person, and they look at their family and they're like, what happened? Or seeing something along those lines, right? And it's kind of unique that we're talking about this on Father's Day, but I just wanted to give the folks a little bit of outline of the conversation, because at the end of the day, I think the point of this conversation is to illustrate the idea that, hey guys, you can have your wife and your family and all that, but you need to have hobbies, right? Don't wait too long before we don't want you to have a midlife crisis. We want you to have a midlife mission. You know what I mean?
Nice.
So,
nice.
I want to start with you. You're someone, have a lot of experience in doing a lot of these activities, and people see you as essentially a finished product, right? They see that, you have to learn how to go hunt. You have to learn how to go in the wilderness and condition yourself and know how to cook and all these kind of things. But let me ask you, how did you, where did you grow up, and did you grow up in a family that was all about organic living and all that kind of stuff, or were you more or less living in the standard American lifestyle?
Yeah. So a couple of things then. Yeah. So first thing, I grew up in Massachusetts. My family's been there for quite a while. Maybe late 1800s.
Okay.
So we're like that blue collar New England, family. But definitely, I would say that hunting was something that my family did.
Okay.
Not like sport, but also not like sustenance. If they didn't hunt, they didn't eat. But it definitely, it put some protein on the table that was greatly appreciated. We'll say that.
Sure.
that. So
Right.
I kind of, I wanted to hunt, we'll say. But I played football and basketball. So football season for us would start somewhere around August. We would start like our conditioning, what they call beach practice, because I grew up on an island. And then football season would end, right around Thanksgiving. We'd move into, and then basketball would start like the week after or something like that. I remember, and that would go into March, and then in March I'd start working.
So you're from Nantucket Island?
Yeah.
That's like a tourist hotspot, right?
Yeah, but it wasn't though. It wasn't. I mean, it was. Okay. But let's just say it wasn't the type of crowd that it is now.
Okay.
And as a trip, so my mother, so my daughter is like fifth generation now. In just from me, and my brothers have their children, so right. We're like sixth 6 generations
Mm.
on the island. Um, but like, my mother remembers, these places like, oh, like this. I remember this was a dirt road. You know what I mean? This is,
Yeah.
or places that anyway. Yeah, we've been there for a minute, and it's
Okay.
changed, and it's quite the destination now.
Right.
But it wasn't always a quaint little town
Yeah,
years
because
ago.
I remember, was it a couple of years ago? I was looking at booking like a, for my 10th wedding anniversary. I was like looking at a place for my wife and I go for like 3-day weekend, and we're looking at Tucket Island. I'm like, I can't get a hotel cheaper than $500 a night.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, it's definitely grown into something that, it's challenging, like I said, because we knew it, obviously, as this quaint little place that was real fun to get
Mhm.
away, but it's challenging now. Like I was just talking to my mother yesterday, and she was just, like, the traffic is really bad. There's no traffic lights.
Mm.
There's no, everything is like on, I could call kind of like human scale. Like there's like,
Right.
you can't have it over a 2-story building. You can only
Right.
build with wood or brick, or it's
Mm.
just really preserved,
Mm.
in that way. Our main street is cobblestone, which has its own
Okay.
history as to why. But anyway,
Right.
anyway.
I got you. Okay, so you did get it. It is kind of, you had the outdoors kind of lifestyle though, I guess,
So
from the
yeah,
beginning.
yeah, let's say that. Yeah, I definitely grew up, doing a lot of things outdoors. You know what I mean? A lot of water stuff. So fishing, definitely. Like I said, hunting. But definitely, I didn't grow up, organic this, organic that. My mother, God bless her, she, did the best that she could, and but processed foods, obviously, right? We had like
Mhm.
canned. One of the I just remember this, like, canned string beans, and
Yeah.
just like, that my wife made string beans one day, and I was like, nah, I'm good, I'm good. Just
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
didn't didn't work well. But so now, I think that shift happened, probably later on in my life,
Mm.
and then I feel it was like 2 stages. One,
Okay.
probably when I was, in the fashion industry,
Okay.
it was level, like that was like a level, that was level up, and then the next level up was like, you know halal, we'll say. Actually, there's multiple levels, we'll say.
Yeah.
And then from the
Okay.
halal, it went to like halal organic, get your own halal and tayyib, like that. So there's
Sure.
actually been multiple. That, let's call it, there's 5 layers. There's five
So talking about
layers
start, you're saying like fashion, the industry was that was probably your first level up, right?
Yeah, definitely. Because obviously you had to take care of, I mean, so it's interesting. I look back at, probably, I was, same size I am now, but I think when I was in that industry, I was probably about 198 pounds, maybe one, even like, yeah, maybe 195 at times.
Right.
Um, and so right now, I'm like 208 is what I pretty much walk around in. But still, I mean, if I compete,
Yeah.
you talk about jiu-jitsu, right? If I
Yeah.
compete, I'm probably somewhere around, 204 to 202.
Okay.
But then thinking about that dropping down to 195, 198.
Mm.
But again, that was all diet,
Mm.
and
And
exercise.
we're
Yeah.
talking about like 25 years ago or something, 30 years ago, fashion. Is that
Yeah,
what?
30 started like 31. Yeah, 31
Okay.
years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, definitely you have to be able to fit into the clothes and like it has to look good on you, right? So you got to be
That's right.
lean. There's like, as much as people were trying to embrace the dad bod, you still don't see fashion models with a dad bod today.
Yeah, yeah, and you definitely didn't see him in the 90s. So
No, so then when you did you have to create your own nutrition plan, fitness plan, or did you have somebody that like helped you with that?
no, it was at that time. Maybe it is now, but I would say at that time, no, it was all on you. You know what I
Okay.
mean? And you had to take care of it. Now, I mean, I think the thing probably that I had going for me is that I was always around athletics.
Okay.
And like I said, s- like a ton of, like, I actually surfed a lot, and I
Mm,
loved to bike.
mm,
I wasn't like a mountain biker, but I don't know, just this freedom of being on a bike. And so
right.
I just enjoyed,
Mm,
riding a lot. So again, just, I said, athletics and fitness was something that I always, this basketball, played basketball all the time. Yeah.
I got you. Now here's the thing. Back then, so right now you have YouTube. There's a lot of resources. I just recently got into physical fitness,
Hmm.
maybe like a year and a half, like seriously a year and a half ago. 'Cause I hired a
Yeah.
trainer in January of 2021, and that kind of got me set up. And then I started jujitsu about a year ago because I just did my 1 year renewal.
Hmm.
Um, and I find that it's actually really simple these days because there are so many resources on the internet. Like if I want to get a recipe, I can just go on YouTube and literally follow this guy
I
step by
know.
step,
I
right?
know.
As far as a program, you can go find it like on the internet. We were talking before the recording. So, what kind of resources did you have? Like in football, you probably learn, but I assume in football, you're probably learning that hey, you got to eat a lot of food and you're going to conditioning, so naturally, and you also your metabolism in high school was like really high, right?
Yeah. Right. Right.
So is there a lot of science behind it? Or is it just like make sure you eat a lot of, because did we have this lifestyle of like you got to hit X amount of protein, like 1 gram of protein for per body weight, that
Yeah.
kind of thing?
Yeah.
Or what was it like back then?
I would say, stuff has just evolved so much. And like you said, that science, you're looking at like caloric intake, like, so one of the things also, so I hunt, right? And I'm in the back country and I met some of these guys, man. I mean, they were like D1 athletes, that are just doing incredible stuff. And it's really interesting that maybe we can talk about that a little bit later, but
Right.
still, no, I mean, you talk about like, how much calories you need a day, then how much you need at elevation and stuff like
Yep.
that. No, I mean, here's the thing, bro. Like man, I would like skip a meal, not eat lunch on game day, then have like two Snickers bars before a game or something like that. You know what I
Right.
mean? And be all messed up and didn't know this whole like sugar, how my body responded to sugar and stuff like that. So
Mm.
everyone was just figuring it out, on their own, and even conditioning. I remember we had someone from our high school, two players, one kid, from our class, yeah, from our team. We were in the same class, graduated '87. He made it all the way. He was drafted by the Patriots. He didn't make it, but still, I mean, we had a solid athletics,
Mm.
program, but the conditioning was on you. We had a nice weight room and like this, but still, it was just kind of like some people maybe would get a little bit more training, and then you just kind of we would be around them, and you'd see what works. But again, it wasn't like this for explosion, explosive power, or this for. It was just kind of, you just lifted. You know what I mean? And or you didn't. you know?
Right, right,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
So
yeah.
then you talk about like then living up, like you were in Damascus about 20 years ago, was that right?
Yeah, 96. Yep.
96.
So
So
yeah.
what impact did being Damascus or being in Syria have any impact on some of your lifestyle today?
I would just say there it was the first time that I really, well, I would say the first time, it's probably like in Paris, was this idea of like an open market shopping. So it was like the ultimate level of organic, right?
Hmm.
So I remember just going to a market in Paris, open air market, whatever you want to call it,
And this
right?
is
And
when you were
buy,
in fashion.
yeah, yeah, and
Okay.
just buying produce and
R-
vegetables and stuff like
Right.
this, right?
Okay.
So Damascus was like that. That was what you did. You know what I mean? Because there wasn't like supermarkets, and there wasn't like Western, um, food chains or anything like that in
Sure.
Damascus. So I think this idea of, you get really used to it. I remember this was really profound. My wife and I. So I met my wife in Damascus. Got married in Damascus. We came back, and I remember we came back, and we were in this massive, uh, grocery store, and we're in the produce section, and it's just like, just big, how we do it here, like big
Yeah.
spread, and I'm talking
Mhm.
like one of these super centers, right?
Right.
We come into the produce section, and my wife, and I said, like, you smell that? And she's like, I don't smell anything. I'm like, that's the point. Like, all this produce was here, all of this vegetable, all this fruit, and we couldn't smell anything. But in the
Mm.
market in Damascus, like, as soon as you'd be like 50, 60 yards away, you're smelling lemons, you're smelling, I mean, just all these wafts are coming of this. So again, kind of becoming accustomed now to just delicious tasting, smelling, fresh produce. I would say that's something that really, like, became very clear, from my time in Damascus. And I think that's something that, or everything, even like even our meat, we would go there, they would take care of the chicken, you know what I mean, right in front of you, defeather it, and then like hand it to you. So this was something that was really I think kind of also set a precedence for me
Mm.
in terms
When
of
you
understanding.
when you became Muslim,
Yeah.
were you always on board with like the Zabiha halal methodology, or did you start like, because a lot of Muslims don't like adhere to it
Yeah.
as strictly, right?
Yeah, no, I was both feet in off the high board. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. I jumped right in off the high board.
And this was in Massachusetts still?
Yes. Well, no, I actually took my shahada. I was in Cape Town. I was in South Africa.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah,
That's okay. So South Africa is seen by many of us here in America that from halal standard they're very advanced, right? Would you say that to be true?
Well, again, I mean, this is like 91,
Yeah,
sorry, 96.
yeah.
I would say also I had, so my, alhamdulillah, I mean, like I had like a slight of a slight advantage. My cousin had become Muslim in the 70s. So I knew about, halal and he was, so I had about 20 years, right, of observing him and his lifestyle and knowing about halal and like this. But
Okay.
yeah, in South Africa, well, it was interesting, right? So this is 96, man. This is like 2 years post apartheid that I was there.
Oh,
And so
right.
it was a different it was a different landscape than now, I would say. But I just remember there was this beautiful restaurant. It was called Basmala. You know what I mean? Like in this place, and
Mhm.
I just remember going. I wasn't Muslim at the time. I just went there and just had a nice meal. But yeah, it was it. What it's interesting. You asked me that question about halal from the beginning. Let's
Yeah.
just say that I was kind of on that game, but also as a new Muslim, I was getting like, hey, you can just say Bismillah and eat this. You know what I mean? So I would think for a little bit until I figured that out. That happened for a little while. Yeah, it was probably a
Well,
couple of weeks.
yeah, this is it's such a sensitive topic.
Yeah,
First of all,
yeah,
because
yeah.
people love their food,
Yep,
right?
yep.
Um, and there are people who like say that you can go out there and listen. And I remember I was having a conversation with somebody who was asking me about this, and I was like, listen, I'm not the most. I try to be, but realistically speaking, there's a lot of things I fall short in, right? Um, to me, I switched over probably. It's funny because in my lifetime, I was raised in a family where it wasn't emphasized.
Hmm.
Okay,
Hmm.
um, and then I remember I first got into it maybe like the idea of like it registered maybe like 14 years ago, right around when I was graduating college.
Hmm.
And I tried it for a little bit, but I looked at it more of a point of view of it made sense that something that the basmala was set over would
Hmm.
have more some spiritual effect,
Hmm.
and there was a
Hmm.
spiritual benefit in that kind of consumption, right?
Hmm.
But I didn't think of it as a legal versus like from that point of view, like permissible versus
Hmm.
impermissible.
Hmm.
So then I
Hmm.
kind of was like, and then what's so happened, but because it wasn't when you're doing something for like it's a spiritual benefit, but it's not, you don't have to do it. I fell off, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Right? And then I went back to it. I would hear like, um, a lecture about like from like a Sheikh Hamza Makbul and Mufti Abdullah Nana, and then
Hmm.
they would make a very convincing argument. And you think about like dead animals and like how the butcher shops sometimes these cows are dead before they're even getting the knife, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And then you're like, well, that's pretty clear cut. We know we can't
Yeah,
eat dead animals.
that's right.
But then you'd hear some brothers who are advocates of it. They're like, well, they're not really dead. There's still like some kind of nerves going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
All
yeah,
that stuff.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah,
I'm like, okay, well, maybe
yeah.
and then so you got this back and forth, and then finally it culminated because it was like, okay, I do want to, attain some kind of like spiritual growth.
Mm.
And I remember one of the teachers in Chicago was, giving a talk, and he was just like, if you are like out there and you're like thinking about, you know, you're trying to justify all this stuff, and you also tell and say, hey, I want to grow spiritually, then you're lying to yourself, right? Um, And then it's like some things like, this whole thing is like your heart will incline to a certain thing, right? And if you have a disturbance there, something's going down. So that's when I switched over. But like when people ask me now, they're like, why do you do it? I'm like, listen, man, if I believed it was permissible to eat it, I would. Right? Because it would make my life so much easier.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? That's the way I look. And people don't want to, I think people then are like, well, you're saying that what I'm eating is not permissible. I'm like, by my position, yes. Right. And, and I think, do I think, and people want to talk about like, well, that's why we're so backwards because you guys are just worried about meat and consumption. Yeah. And I'm like, well, listen, there's narrations about prayers not being accepted. That's how a lot of people, they take it seriously because they're of that reason. Sometimes some of our elders say that the reason our communities and the state it's in is because the food we consume and the fact that we are lazy about things like not getting our elbows in wudu, for example. Like being lazy about that, or lazy about cleaning ourselves after the restroom. People think this stuff's trivial, right? But it's like, yo, dude, if this stuff doesn't happen, your prayer might not count.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So people don't want to hear that, though.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that, because I think of it in terms of like, what do we do to attain success in other, areas of our life?
Right.
Whether it be professionally, whether it be financial, which will lead, which we'll see is financial or physical. But yet on this, we're willing to give ourselves a pass. And I think about like, because I've been in education now for like 16 years, right? So I see the grind that people put their children through. And I think to myself, like, you wouldn't accept a C from your kid. Like you're coming home with a C in AP calculus. You'd be like,
they wouldn't accept a B plus or an A
minus.
Accept
a B plus, exactly. So I think about it in that way, and then I think about it in terms of like, how do you kind of penetrate and pierce through this veil that we are, experiencing right now, and not looking at that as an end, but as a means. Right. Looking at those things as a means. And that's the same thing with this.
Right.
Well, those things are ends in of themselves.
Right.
And I think, but it's a means to something.
Right.
And that means can be to the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because I think what happens is, this is something I've been talking about recently with some friends, is that a lot of times we can conflate Islam as being the end. Islam is not the end. Islam is the means. Allah is the end. And so when you think about it in that way, right, the pleasure of Allah is in getting the elbow. The pleasure of Allah is in being, clean in a way that He has taught us to be clean. Islam, the pleasure of Allah is found in, following His laws. Now there's a whole debate about whether, 1902 fatwa from, Muhammad Abdu, of whether or not, the dhabh, slaughter is ritual, or if it's just habitual. But I'm like, that's a tough one, because if it's not ritual, then how is it a part of your Hajj? And if you leave it out, your Hajj is incomplete. How is it sanctioned then for the Eids if it's just habitual? So that's a tough one for folks to kind of say doesn't qualify as a ritual act. But again, we can that's a whole other podcast, man.
No, it is something, but it's something that when I grew up in Ohio, and it wasn't as discussed, but now being in Chicago, this is like one of the key, and it tends to be a divisive issue, because the South Asians will come into the Arab community and like question everything, right? And the way the Arabs will say, like, well, this is halal. I'm like, and because from their point of view, it is. But then you got to look for the actual cert, and that's what the guy, and that's why you have organizations like Hafsa, and they'll go out there in the background and do the auditing, because sometimes cats will have this audit, and then you'll be like, hey, bro, this chicken is like from Walmart, and it ain't no Crescent Foods. You know what I mean? Because you had a shortage, and you sent some dude to go get like Purdue from Costco. right?
Right. Right.
So I think that's where
But think
there's a
about it
lot.
now, though, in that context of
Yeah,
ends and means.
right,
You know what I mean? Like if you see that, that's like a non-negotiable at that point.
right.
You know, and I think like if we look at it in that way, then I think because for me, you know, what I think about is all of these things. Also, in my opinion, is that these are like minor tests for us, man.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Or not minor, they're major. But
Right.
I see them as like, okay, so like what I'm not say like adherence and person, but like Allah, like what level are you gonna be like, hey, I'm cool right here, right? Right. Or you're gonna, and this is the thing that you're talking about, we are talking about earlier. How at what point do we push ourselves through and keep pushing and keep pushing because we know that push is what actually elevates us. Like that's how we level up. We don't level up by being, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Like like mediocre.
Right. Yeah.
Nobody's leveling up being mediocre. So we'll go to all of these, you know, Gary V, blah, 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 all of this stuff to level up. And he was
Right.
telling you, you know, you got to hustle and you got to get down like this and blah, blah,
Right.
blah, and all
Hmm.
of that. When
Hmm.
it comes to Dean, we're like, I don't know, man.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
It's,
So I think that's the point. I think the point is that you have to want to level up on that because human beings here, we're talking about things. You got to have your finance. If you're a married guy, right? You think about again back to the context of the show. You're a married guy. You want to protect your family, right? How do
mm-hmm,
you do that? You get your finances right. You want to have a good income to support your family. You
mm-hmm.
gotta be physically fit because you don't want to die on them early,
That's
right?
right.
And the spiritual side of it, you have to have that part because you are their spiritual role model for
There
your
you
kids
go.
and your
There you
wife,
go. There you
right?
go. There
So
you
all
go.
those three things have to be like you there has to be a push for all those three things. And it is hard to do multiple at once, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
for me it's been like compartmentalized. Okay, so
Yeah. There you go. There you go.
when I go to work, when I go to the office, like I shouldn't be looking up jujitsu videos when I'm working,
Right. Right.
right? Or look,
Right.
that kind of thing.
Right.
I need to think about what do I got to do, and maybe there's time outside. So I have um I've got a friend who I'm not going to name, but he is an exceptional individual.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
One of the most impressive individuals I've ever met in my life, and
Mm-hmm.
the thing about him, he's always been leveling up, but he's the type that it's like unlike the Gary V style where you're documenting everything and everyone knows about it.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't even. So it's funny because last week I saw his wife on Instagram. His wife posted a picture of some guy like facing wearing a purple tassel, like a graduation tassel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that looks like the back of my friend's head, like his wife.
Mm-hmm.
So and obviously I was like, it's his wife posting this story. She wouldn't be posting of some random dude, right?
Mm.
And I'm like, wait a second. I was like, hey, did so and so just pick up an MBA from Kellogg, Northwestern University, without telling anybody? Like, no one even knows about it? Like, while working like a private equity job, while doing jujitsu, while doing this? And she was like, yeah, like, and he's one of my closest friends, and I had no idea he was
Mm.
even going to business school, where the average dude will be like, oh, I'm here for the school visit. They put in my story. Here's a selfie with the dean.
Mm. Mm.
You know what I
Mm.
mean?
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
there's that thing where it's like, I think sometimes people there's leveling up, and there's also maybe we're getting so confused with telling people about it, which is something
Yeah.
I'm guilty as hell of, by the way, because you are
Mm.
trying to we've absorbed some of this mindset of the Gary V mindset where we want people, and I think part of it is beneficial because people see it and they're like, oh, they hit you up and like, well, I want to do that. So it's not like it's a
What?
bad thing, but
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a fine line. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And I think that what you're saying
yeah,
is praiseworthy. But also, I also have come to find out
yeah,
it's like certain proclivities that an individual may have,
yeah,
right? But it can also, and also I've seen it as in like you can have proclivity in two ways. One is I'm an introvert, and I just don't like that, or I'm like have the propensity to be such an extrovert that like I'm going to check myself this way, and you kind of
mm,
play that game with the nuffs as well too, so it doesn't
mm,
run amok. So I think that I'm I think it's absolutely praiseworthy what he said, but I do think there's something the time that we're in right now too, and I hear it a lot. um, of just like of folks being motivated or seeing something and being inspired and
Mm,
making a change. And I don't, and things didn't happen that way before, or maybe they did and we just didn't know it because we didn't
right.
communicate in the way that we communicate now. But I
Right.
do think there's something to be said about that. And I think I've definitely have seen certain things, like definitely this kind of hunter athlete approach, so to speak. That is incredibly inspiring for people. And then you're able to kind of, if you can emulate that in some way and bring
Mm.
others into it, I think it's beneficial. I think it's beneficial.
Are you familiar with Cal Newport?
Cal Newport, I'm not.
No, so he has a book called Deep Work.
Ah,
And the yellow cover. You know what I'm talking
yeah,
about. Now you know what I'm
it's in
talking
my
about.
other office. Is it?
Okay.
Sorry. Someone just gave it to me.
Yeah, that's the one.
Haven't read it. Someone just gave it to me.
Yeah, this is like, so I think a lot of when people think, I think a lot of times I think the mindset we have to get in is because when we read some of this content, because will read the self-help industry in general has been around forever. People take disses at it. Cal Newport, I don't see as a self-help guy. He's just more like how do you live a deep life kind of thing, and how do you do deep work, and it's more basic. It's blocking and tackling. Like a lot of it is like boring repetitious stuff, but at the end of the day, you get a positive result, right?
Yeah,
Which is
yeah.
what people want.
But here's the thing, though. Our dean, in my opinion,
Yeah,
is it takes um, um, what is habitual. I won't say
yeah,
mundane, but what is habitual, and makes it divine. So you mentioned
yeah,
we'll do is repetitive, man. Salah is repetitive.
right,
How do we not? How do we take that habituated action, right? And find divinity, God's grace,
hmm,
whatever it could be in that. And I think that's, to me, I heard a scholar say one time that if we combined all of the things of which specific days were mentioned, like on the day of this, the Prophet Islam, this happened, and on the day of this, something the Prophet Islam happened. It's like a year, but his prophecy was for 23 years.
hmm,
So how did he live the rest of his life? That's my thought, right? Like what was it? What was the day-to-day grind like? What was it? What was it like? What was grocery shopping like? What was child rearing like? What was, these types of things that all of us are going through. And
hmm,
I think at times we look at, on this day, this happened. Like that's an anomaly,
right,
right? Putting on his armor and heading out for this, like that's an anomaly. He wasn't doing that every day, but he was with his family and he was with his community every day. And I think that we like, it's this home run mentality that I think about. Like no one
yeah,
wants to just get on base. Everyone
mhm,
wants to hit a home run, but you know what I mean? Your percentage, your on base percentage is going to look much higher than your home run percentage.
right,
So how do we? And I think that's the thing that can cause crisis in people,
right,
right? Because you're not ready for that kind of mundane grind.
right.
Um, and so yeah, we can. But
If I look at my own life, right, I remember because I got interested into the Deen when I first was 19 years old, right.
yep, yep.
That's when I first read the Quran in the English translation. I mean, I had
Mm-hmm.
read it as a kid, in Arabic to get the party and all that. You know what I mean? But like, it's a Dixie thing, right? I didn't get no Bismillah party though. I think that's bogus. Like, I'm like, you don't get a party to start. You know what I mean? Um, by the way, a side note. So, a couple weeks ago, my daughter, she's going to turn 9. She also started BJJ at the same time as I did, although
Mm-hmm.
she's in a kids class.
Mashallah. Yeah.
So we're driving back, and she's telling me about a birthday party she's got to go to, right? And for her classmates, and she missed last year's one, and because I think she was visiting like my parents in Ohio or something, and it's on some arts and crafts thing. I just kind of blew it up to her. I was like, hey, listen, when we throw you a birthday party, it's pretty low key. It's like the grandparents come over, we'll have some cake, maybe get some pizza. That's about it. You get a couple gifts, right? Nothing big. We're not inviting your friends over. And it's like, yeah, I noticed that. You don't give us. I'm like, yeah, because I'm not rewarding you for essentially just getting older, for like adding a year to your life, right? And she's like, I'm like, does that make sense? And she's kind of like, I'm like, listen, if you did something of accomplishment, like you got a belt promotion in BJJ, or you memorized X amount of Quran, or this or that, like, right? And I'm not gonna bait you with either. It's like you do it, and then, oh, that's how I'll reward you, right? It's not gonna be like, hey, but then you could get a party. And she's
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's just like
Yeah.
there's this I don't know why how I got in that little tangent right there, but something you just said.
Well, we have that kind of transactional relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know what I
Right.
mean? In Quran,
Yeah.
Allah talks about that. "Hal
Right.
adullukum ala tijaratin tunjikum min adhab." Like Allah says, guide you or show you
Right.
a transaction, a business transaction
Hmm.
that will save you. You know what I
Right.
mean? From a tormenting
Right.
punishment. You know?
But looking back at my own life and like look like last 20, getting into that, then you get so then what happens is when we get in, if we're in college age, we would join the MSA, and then
Mm-hmm.
there's at the time an urge to learn. You're like, okay, I don't know a lot
Mm,
of stuff, right?
mm,
So
mm,
you're looking to learn, you're going into that, and you have this MSA vehicle, this community that kind of can be a bubble, right?
mm-hmm.
In a way, while you're doing your school and and then you graduate and you join the professional ranks, and now you're on an island. Now it's just like, okay, people are, if you're practicing, you people are like, well, you should get married, right? And you're like, okay, so we'll get married. But now you're not as focused on learning as much as you would, because sometimes, let's be real, sometimes in MSA you're there to meet a spouse.
Real talk.
Maybe we're learning because we want to be given the khutbah,
Real
because that's how the
talk.
sisters will see us,
Real
right?
talk. Real
You
talk.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
Let's have honest conversations. Let's have honest conversations.
yeah,
So,
right. So now you got married. So, oh, I got what I needed, right?
yep.
And now
Yep.
you're at work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now the thing of it is, how do you apply yourself at work?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many? It's very rare for me to find Muslims, and this frustrates me because like you're gonna be in corporate America anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you just like barely getting by?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That's part of it. You're working the hours no matter what. So that's number one.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, then what are you doing as far as your spiritual development at this point, right? And then you have
Yeah.
kids, and now it's like, oh, it's about the kids. I'm overwhelmed. I'm drowning,
Yeah.
and the kids got this, the kids got that, we got this, and next, 10 years. I was at a birthday party for a friend's child right before Ramadan, and I was talking to a guy. I was, it's and he there's certain circles of friends, you'll meet certain people, right, all the time, right? And I was like casual. I was like, how do you, I was asking around like, how do you know so and so? I was like, oh, his wife is friends with my wife. Next guy, how do you know so and so? And he's like, I just go where my wife takes me, man. I don't know any of these guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, and this guy's like a Cornell educated physician,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, don't you have what happened to your boys from like undergrad? Or he's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I lost touch with them, and right now it's just like whatever the wife wants to do, I just do it.
Yeah.
And you're on this cycle. You're like, what are you doing for yourself?
There you go.
Right?
There
And
you
you're
go.
just like getting dragged along.
Yeah.
And then the worst situations I've seen is that now you've done something, she's checked out on you, you don't even realize it because you stopped improving yourself, right? So 10 years, 15 years, she's like, I'm not getting anything out of this marriage anymore. My kids are grown.
But check it. Imagine from the wife's side,
Yeah.
if you're feeling like I got to drag this dude around everywhere. You know what I mean? Like you said, you're supposed to be leading this project. Like
right.
you're the emir. Like you signed, like you co-signed, you signed on that. You're the emir.
Right.
And so it's interesting. I mean, a lot of analogies came through, like metaphors came through as you were saying that. Imagine you too, bro. Imagine, like you said, imagine you go to class every day and you're being dragged around the mat. How long are you going to be able to sustain that for?
Right.
No offense, bro. You're on defense every single minute.
Yeah.
Every single minute. Defending the choke. He's side control.
Right.
Getting cross face. He's got steps over the mount.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Cross choke, fake stat, arm bar. You know what I mean? Like you can't sustain that. You folks are gonna give up. Folks are gonna give up. So imagine that now in your marriage.
Mm-hmm.
If all you're doing is like you're not leading. And so I think that's something that you just nailed it. And I'm thinking to myself about interviewing that individual. It's going to be individual X.
Right.
Like what happened to what you like to do?
Yeah.
Right? Where did that go, man? Because now the other thing I think about is, you know, again, and this is something that I really think about a lot is when we take means as an end and then we're stuck when we get it. Like, I'm sorry, even just being a physician, tabarakallah, blessings, right?
Right.
But it's not an end, it's a means. And again, and I think that means for me is what Allah talks about in Quran, that his ridwan, right? Ridwan min Allahi akbar, like the pleasure of Allah is greater than all of the na'im, like all of the bounties that we're going to experience. So at the end of the day, we're trying to achieve that ridwan from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That ridwan is not going to look like me neglecting my well-being, my comprehensive well-being. Right. I think that's what we're talking about here. Comprehensive. One aspect, yeah, I ticked all the boxes, man. We can vacation wherever we want. We got the kind of home that we want. It's where we want. It's near the school that we want for our kids. We can tick all of those boxes, man.
Right.
But in terms of like contentment, right? Times of contentment and competency, and having our partner knowing that we're competent in those areas, you know, that to me is will break someone. It'll break someone.
And the sad thing is, I think a lot of guys don't realize they're even in the predicament. They just like, that's just the way it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is what it's supposed to be like.
But until you move out of that circle and you see it's not like that. And you meet, like you said, someone who's your friend so I think I put it into those three categories. So we don't like talk about categories, but I do put it in those three categories about mind, body, and soul. You know what I mean? So intellectually, where are we at? Are we improving? And I've done this, man. I feel bad, but sometimes when I go home, I'm like, man, this cat is still the same way he was when we were in high school. Yeah. He hasn't, like, he's still that same guy. And God forbid when it's all three, he's still that same guy physically, he's still that same guy intellectually, and he's still that same guy spiritually. But I think what happens is that we will find probably less pressure as we you know gain mastery or proficiency or excellence in one of those areas, but we'll feel incomplete in the other. You know, because of the others. So we'll feel incomplete because we haven't fulfilled the others as well too. And I think to me, that's really where this is. Like I'm glad that a person thinks of that as of me. That this was actually one of our students here at Zaytuna that gave me that deep workbook. Now I wasn't that guy, man. It wasn't until I read the autobiography of Malcolm X. Trust me, I wasn't that guy. I was a kid that was, you know what I mean, captain. 4 years of basketball and was an athlete, barely graduated high school. But you know, intellectually, nah, it wasn't me until I read the autobiography of Malcolm X. And I was like, wow.
Because I noticed based upon your bio that you went to college later in life.
Yeah. I just finished a master's in 2017. You know what I mean? And yeah, it took me 22 years to finish an undergraduate degree, which is another thing I'm saying for folks, like, don't give up on yourself. But again, having that inspiration and having people around you, you know what I mean? I was blessed to be in the company of Imam Zayd when we were in Damascus as a student, but to see that desire to keep learning. Sheikh Hamza uses that term all the time here, right? Lifelong learners.
I think one of the things that we have to break as a community, and I don't know how much it is for the Indian, for like, people who converted to Islam versus people like us. South Asians, we have this is a huge South Asian problem, right? In that from a young age, like you mentioned, you alluded to earlier, that we're so focused on education. Like I remember, I bet my dad knows my friends' SAT scores, like everyone who I graduated with,
Mm.
because everybody knew that uncles would straight ask you, like, "What'd you get in your SAT?"
Mm-hmm.
And if it wasn't like up to par, they would say, "You're not gonna have rice and dal to eat,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
You'll
Mm.
starve to death."
Mm-hmm.
Or if it was, I have one friend, he got like a 1550 out of 1600, which is like absurd
Mm-hmm.
score, right? You're pretty
Yeah,
much
yeah,
like almost a perfect score,
yeah.
you know. And I remember everyone knew that, and like everyone knew what their score was. But then when I look, but when I look at some of these people now, I'm just like, the accomplishment was in high school or in college, and now it's just like coasting. So you live your life for 20 years, you're pushing yourself for 20 years, and then you coast for 60. Is that what
Wow.
happens?
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And
yeah,
I think that's this
yeah.
predicament, because you have parents pushing you, and then parents are like, okay, once I've got you to this finish line, and in a sense they're right, in a sense that like you got to be your own man. But like they put this embed thing into you, like once you got here, you made it, and there's nothing else. So the brother who's the Cornell physician, he thinks he's good. He thinks it's over, right? He doesn't know there's anything else. So as we're talking here, I feel like now I have a responsibility to someone like him. I meet somebody like that, right? And that's someone that maybe that's someone I need to maybe get around me a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe something, because I'm like, it is kind of, because like how else, you at least got to try to reach out to some folks, right? Because sometimes people are not, it could be another 10, 15 years. The worst thing to happen is most guys don't wake up until it's like they're getting divorce papers filed on them.
Yo, Tief.
Then they're like, what happened? Like, what? I thought everything was great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think what happens too, unfortunately, is that we also, unfortunately, we emulate, right? Like we emulate what we've seen. And so I think it's interesting for me, because I'll tell you this, Maheen, that Islam for me, like it broke so many patterns, and it kind of how education was emphasized, and then what we did for our children.
Mm-hmm.
So like we never had a television in our like 26 years. I'm a Muslim, and I've been married for 24 years. We never had like we had a television set that we, like when our oldest daughter was 20 now, and maybe she was like 4 or 5, but like to watch some VHS tapes at that time, right? Um, but but our whole life has been without that. Now, not because I'm like, it's the Dajjal. No. What I'm telling you is that I know how much time I wasted as a child.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't read. But I was on Creature Double Feature, Kung Fu Theater, you know what I mean? Like Mork and Mindy, all it was just it was television. So to remember, I said children are going to emulate, or we are going to emulate what we see. So now, I've got a little library, we had books, our kids, alhamdulillah, they're avid readers, and so breaking these things within us, but also um, uh, in all areas that we said, spirituality, and also I think, which is something as well too, of those things, is that we have to be people that are not do as I say, not as I do.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be that. We have to be, not telling our kids go read Quran if we're not reading Quran. We can't be telling our kids, go make dhikr if we're not making dhikr. We can't, what I mean? We have to model that for them.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think modeling it, like I said, it's got to be intellectual, spiritual, and physical as well too. And so that's something that I think about.
If someone's at square one, let's say somebody finally, like for some reason, they're living their life, and all of a sudden they're like, man, I just feel unfulfilled, right? Where do they start? Because sometimes, a lot of times, guys, I have to imagine that everybody can't be completely. We're not that numb, where we're just like everything is just fine. You know that meme of
Yeah.
the mouse or the house is on fire. It's like, and he's having coffee. He's like, everything is fine. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
most I would have to I'd have to guess that even though like I knew that so for myself, after I graduated, I got married fairly soon after I graduated. My wife was, she's a physician, was in that kind of thing. I think
Mhm,
I was always wanted more out of life. I think I was like, even though I didn't necessarily know how to approach things, right?
mhm,
Like I
mhm.
found the podcasting game, it kind of found me,
Okay.
like, very randomly. It wasn't like, and the only thing I can trace it back to is really like the year before, because I started with Mad Mamluks in April 2016, um, and in September of 2015 I did Hajj, and when I did
Mhm,
Hajj, I made a dua that um, I find something that I can commit to that could help the community,
mm,
and
mm,
I didn't know what that was. And I tried different things. I tried running community service or initiatives and things of that sort, but I wasn't like passionate. It was like it was like pulling my own teeth to do it, right?
mm, mm, mm,
Um, so when the podcasting thing found me, I was just like, well, this is, and I enjoy it. And, now between this channel and the other channels, I've 300 or so interviews on under my belt, right?
mhm.
Um, but where does someone start though? I think sometimes like because like I feel like a lot of times there's you just feel like stuff just happens to you and it
Yeah,
works out.
yeah, 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 and but sometimes it doesn't, right?
Yeah.
So I would say, obviously, where you start is the place to start, right? For dua, for guidance. But I think for me, it was also doing the things that I wanted to do, but just wasn't able to do circumstantially. So either it was like I wanted to hunt, but I was like playing sports, or I wanted to hunt, but I lived in New York. Or I wanted to, right? So it's what are those things that appeal to me, and then pursue them. Now, I may have grown out of it, and I may not. I don't know, right? Like, what were those things that you enjoyed as a kid, or if they weren't, what were the things that maybe intrigued you that you didn't do?
Yeah.
And then you can kind of like look through those. Now here's the thing: you got to figure out if you want to do it as an individual, if you want to do it as a group, because like you mentioned, now there's all of these things. Like I got a brother who just started hiking here the other day, and then he's like in a group. He hikes, all you got these 1,400 clubs for friends that are in Colorado. They're meeting
Right.
up. They're doing all these peaks that are at 1,400 feet, and they're like
Right.
this. So I think that there's if there's ever been a time for it to be facilitated, and guided, that's the time that we're in right now. But I think, you mentioned something earlier, and you kind of like went in passing. I think you said, for food and for other things for our body, like you said, we don't want to, kind of, um, have food. Like you said we have to eat well, so we don't want to die. But I think there's a level to that as well too, right? It doesn't have to be on that side of the spectrum. I don't want to be that guy that can't play with his kids, man. I don't want to be that, you know what I mean? That guy that becomes a burden on people because of the way that I live, because of my lifestyle choices.
hmm
And so I think about like a takhfif, like ease, being easy for people or easy on people or whatever that is. So I think, okay, so what are those things for me? Like I try to connect my hobbies also to things that are going to keep me healthy, man, that are going to
Right.
challenge me physically. And so I think that's also part of the game for me as well too. It may look like it's no, there's a little bit of method to my madness here. You know what I mean?
So with that, you mentioned food. So sometimes food is an enjoyment for people, right? Eating
Yeah.
out is an enjoyment for people. It's a
Yeah.
family thing. How do you manage to keep it where, like, sometimes like you'll be like dialed in on your diet and everything, and then wife wants
Uh-huh.
to go out for ice cream or something, right?
Uh-huh.
And if kids
Uh-huh.
want to go for ice cream. Kids like ice cream.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I like ice cream. You
Yeah.
know,
I like ice
um,
cream.
you know what I mean? Is it
Yeah.
like do you beat yourself when you're trying to get on the program, so to speak, as
Uh-huh.
Jocko Willing says, right? When you're trying to get on the program, do you like have to sometimes forgive yourself and let yourself, like, okay, once a week we can go out for ice cream or something. That's not gonna kill
So
you. Like how
yeah,
do you deal with that element where you're knowingly ingesting processed junk?
yeah. So for me, I got another hashtag: cheat days are lies. right?
Okay.
So what I feel
Okay.
is that there are healthy alternatives. So this February marks 8 years that we've been off of processed sugar as a family.
Like not
Here's
like zero.
zero.
Okay.
And it's like in products as well too. So, but it leveled up our baking game as a family. Like you meant, like here's an Eid gift for our family. Yo, it's an ice cream maker. We make ice cream, and we've had people be like, "Yo, this is crazy. This stuff tastes so good." Or you know what I mean? We're looking for alternatives. So delicious, which is a cashew alternative, and they have like a no sugar, or no processed sugar, but it might be sweetened with honey or stevia, or other plant based alternatives that are not processed sugar. So it's there, and we're not missing a beat. I'm telling you, we're not missing a beat, man. You come around. We've had some folks be like, "Well, this is gluten free. This is sugar free." I'm like, "Yeah." And that's how, and I feel that that's something that's been really incredible to see with my
Mm,
children
mm,
as well too. Like my daughter is 10, she can get in the kitchen, and her and her sister who's 13, they can get down and bake things like from scratch. They don't, like, they've gotten to a point now where they have recipes in their head that are from scratch. And they're all, or we use date sugar, for example. That might be an alternative if we're kind of walking on the razor's edge, so to speak. But now, personally, because here's the thing, I'm going to go, this is an analogy that I use with jujitsu. Okay. So if we're in stand up
yep.
and I work hard for that takedown, and I
Yep.
get you down, and I got you in side control,
Yep.
the last thing I'm gonna do on God's green earth is to let you get up and get back to your feet.
Right.
Right. So to me, that's enough. If I bust my backside that hard to fight the nuffs and to fight my desires, the last thing I'm gonna do is be like, "Oh, here you go, nuffs. Go have a field day," because I know my nuffs. I'm not talking about anybody else. I'm talking about Dawood Yasin. I
Yeah.
know my nuffs.
Hmm.
And the last thing I'm going to do is to fight, to wrestle, to put that joker on a chain, and
Yeah.
then all of a sudden be like, here you go. You can come off for a little bit. No.
Mm. So like, how do you manage when you like? Because sometimes what happens is you go on vacation. That's like,
Yeah.
all right, everything.
Yeah.
There's no rules on vacation. So how does that like when you if or is it like how would you implement something like that? I guess that kind of
I
practice.
don't know. I guess we don't take those vacations, man. I'm sorry. Like we don't, you know what I mean? Yeah. So I mean, like if we do, we've all like, I don't know. Maybe I'm less crazy, man. Like we travel with our own food. Like,
Really?
yeah. Like
Like
we, no, I mean,
okay, so you do travel, so it's not like you're not taking a
yeah,
vacation. You just bring your stuff.
yeah. We bring our own stuff. But we don't like, we don't like travel, like hotel vacation stuff like that, you know what I mean? Like we go, my family lives on the East Coast, so that's a vacation for us. We go to the, you know what I mean, we go to Massachusetts, we go to Nantucket or stuff like that.
Right.
um so we've normally always, if we're going to take a vacation or something like that, it's been with other family and friends, right?
Mhm.
um and so, but yeah, and that's the thing too. So here's the thing. This is another one of my thoughts processes, right? See if you can follow me on this.
Sure.
People call us extreme, but I'm like, wait, hold up, time out. So if you have a heart condition
Hmm.
because of choices in one's diet,
Right.
to the degree that you have to have your chest cut open and a vein taken out of your thigh and put into your chest because of choices you made in food, that result is not extreme. But yeah, I'm the one that's extreme because I'm saying, hey, we're cutting down on gluten because of inflammation. We're cutting down on sugar because of all of these types of things. We're cutting out processed foods because of the, chance of type 2 diabetes with sugar or obesity. And, I'm sorry, man. I can't give you a pass on that. I can't give you a pass on that. You're going to critique me for being extreme, but yet the outcome that I'm searching after is actually the outcome that I want. Now, full disclosure, right? I'm 52 and I'm rolling in the gym with these dudes. I'm rolling with this kid the other day. He's 26 years old. You know what I mean? I'm taking his back. You know what I mean? And I feel like, to me, that's proof positive. And I'm not some, physical phenom, but I'm just saying, like, I'm doing the things that I can do to stave off time.
Right. I hear you. I think even if someone, because someone might be intimidated by what you just said, right? But I would say a takeaway, because one thing I'm trying to internalize for myself is that, like, maybe they can't get to a level. Don't think about just giving out sugar like now immediately
Yeah.
and never on vacation or something. Because maybe I'm like, maybe I could
Yeah.
reduce my sugar. Maybe I need to like cut
Yeah.
it down. Maybe I can go there or
Yeah.
something.
And now here's the thing though.
Yeah.
I'm saying that's what works for me because I know me, bro. I'll knock out a whole box of cookies by myself in one sitting and not even blink. and, and ask the wife, like, why didn't you buy 2 boxes? So look, I know my nuffs. I'm going to be real with you. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm saying for me. Like, why I'm not going to like be playing games or, with try and fool myself. But that's not the reality. No, that is my reality.
When you made that decision 8 years ago,
Uh-huh.
what triggered it, and then how did you deal with, obviously when you make a decision like that, that's for the whole family.
Yeah.
How do you get buy-in?
Well, it was a joint. So there's a couple of things. One, we noticed that one of our daughters had a gluten allergy or sensitivity, not celiac at all, but just a sensitivity, right?
Right.
And so it was kind of messed up because we would be eating sweets and pizza and other types of things in front of her, and she couldn't have any of this gluten. And God bless her, you know what I mean? The strength that it would take at that age. So in solidarity with her, we went like gluten free, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then so we were following a regimen, and it was really to kind of like build up the biome in the gut, and that's what we were after. And so we're looking at it as like it's choices that we believe will aid us in the long run. And I think for children, yeah, I don't know. We just kind of like, this is what we're gonna do, and we went for it. And I think it wasn't like overnight per se. If I had to think about it in the beginning, it was we kind of like slowly, I would say slowly moved into it to a point that it was probably, I would say, 2 years of moving away from it to, you know what I mean? Now we're going to make this decision and have a plan. But you've got to provide an alternative. You can't just be like, hey, no sugar. You know what I mean? Or processed sugar. Right now, fruit sugars, like I said, you just, now all of a sudden you're eating more dates or you're having more fruit or whatever that is. Like because here's the thing, bro. I came to find out like what were the triggers for me, and those emotional triggers. So pain was one. Like I remember I closed my hand on the door on the car.
Yeah.
And it was like right away, I wanted like Reese's, Twix, Snickers, I mean, I like everything that I like. Sugar was just like so like you've got to give the body something, or it's going to be looking to undermine, you know what I mean, and scuttle the ship because it's not getting what it wants.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes it's the triggers really a year ago. So I don't know if so I work out at a gym that's like a bodybuilding gym. So a lot of these guys compete, right?
Okay.
And one of the guys, this guy named Rocco, he's a police officer, and he's like a young kid. He's like in his late 20s probably, right? He just had a show like the other day, right? He posted on his IG like, I'm going to Krispy Kreme for this Oreo donut. And in my head, I was like, I had no intention of going to Krispy Kreme. And I remember it was Ramadan. I think it was Ramadan. And I think my daughter was at home with me. I'm like, hey, we're going to Krispy Kreme. We got to go find this Oreo donut. Right? That just triggers. You see something on social media, you're like,
yeah,
oh, I kind of need that now.
Yeah.
Right? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then I go there and they were sold out, but I'm like, I'm already at Krispy Kreme. So like I ain't drive 20 minutes for nothing. So let me get
gas is really expensive right now.
You know what I mean? So let me get, I think it was a Reese, you know what I mean? And he was telling me now, he says he normally will go there for their monthly donut. He's like, hey, listen, man, the thing about cops and donuts is real. But I'll go to Krispy Kreme. I'll get their special every month. He takes one bite and he throws it out. Right?
Interesting.
But I'm just like, But it's funny. That was the trigger. I was like, oh, you'll see, because sometimes you'll see someone who's healthy, generally speaking, and then you see their cheat meal. I'm like, that might be their only cheat meal for 3 months. Like some of
Yeah.
these, like I saw one of my friends posted that the other day, the first cheat meal in 3 months because he's got a competition coming up, right? Or he just finished it or
Yeah.
something. So,
Yeah.
but I think you are, I think that's the point you made. You got to know yourself. You got to know what sets you off because some dudes could do the whole like a cheat meal could turn into a cheat month. If they're
Yeah, that's what happened. So check it. There was a brother that was I went to Umrah with us,
right,
and he observed my diet like over the month. He's like, "Yo, I want to get down." He's a physician. He's in medical school.
okay,
He was like, "I want to get down, Imam. Do it. Can you connect?" I'm like, "Okay, look, this is what we do." So he's like 90 days. He's on it 90 days, and he's like, his friends convinced him like 90 days, man. You're a baller. Let's go to Cold Stone. He said, Imam Dawood, he said, I went to Cold Stone. He said, I can't lie to you, man. I haven't been off sugar since. So, you know what I mean? That Cold Stone hit him with a straight right. Boom. You know what I mean? And that was it, man. The ref was waving him off after that. So that's what I'm saying. Like that's very real. And what does that 90 days feel like? And he's calling me, he's telling me this is amazing. My workouts are better. Cause he was in the gym. He was like, my workouts are better at clarity. I've got, just all these things that he's talking about. But then, like I said, you let that bull off the chain again. Now you got to deal with it. So I think that's something right there. I think that, there's also, I don't know. I like to explore, man. I like to explore. And I like to explore because of obviously I'm nowhere near this and I'm not claiming it, but I think there's something to it that when Goggins and these people say that, like, when you're ready to quit,
yeah,
you still got 60% more in the tank.
David Goggins, yeah,
Goggins, you know what I
right,
mean?
yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I want to know, like, so bro, like I incorporate like water fasting.
Okay.
Right. So I'll do like, I've done, some days of water fasting. I wanted to try what was dates in water like for the Prophet Islam. I did like the first 10 days of Ramadan of dates in water. So to me, why do I say that? I say that because when that becomes something that you can do, that cheat day stuff is like, are you kidding me? Come on, yeah. When you're not catching me with the okie doke on that one.
Yeah, was your wife always aligned on these kind of, like, as far as from a nutrition point of view? Because I assume your wife is Syrian.
No, she's actually from here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Her mom. So her parents were converts. She just went to Syria early to study. Yeah,
I gotcha.
So yeah. She's actually from here. Like grew up down the hill down in Albany, just right next outside of Berkeley in Oakland.
Okay.
So you know what? I think we kind of did it together, so to speak. Like I remember when we, like, it's interesting because in Damascus there wasn't a lot of treats that you would get. So soda was something, you know what I mean? But then I remember we just stopped soda. And so now, I mean, I stopped soda way before kind of all this nutrition stuff, just because I was like, it just doesn't do anything. It's a high sugar content, but it was before this kind of sugar. So it was just soda itself, but there were other things that we're eating that maybe weren't so healthy, but just things that we noticed that we just didn't need, or things that they just don't make you feel good. Like there's things that you'll eat, they just don't make you feel good. And so now it's like, I'm not going to do that again. I'm not going to do that again.
Yeah, that's a very profound point. Sometimes, there are foods that we purposefully eat that we know, like, so there used to, when I used to work in the steel industry, right? In Northwest Indiana. Northwest Indiana is like the hub. People think the steel industry is dead in America. It actually is alive and kicking, but the hub is not really Pittsburgh anymore. It's Northwest Indiana, like Gary, that area, right?
Yeah.
And there aren't a lot of food options. You have to pack your lunch if you don't. But there was a fried shrimp spot in the hood in East Chicago, which is like, you don't want to generally be there after dark. But called Broadway Shrimp, and me and my coworker, we sometimes we had to plan for it, but we would have to say, listen, if we go to Broadway today, we got to make sure our afternoon, we don't have to do anything important that requires the brain in the afternoon, because we know the itis will hit hard. Like, how it's just like, and I remember a friend of mine was like, why would you eat something that you're gonna be feeling like crap after? Like you just feel like, or I need to go hit this like this is gonna be if I eat this, then let me just turn the TV up for 10 hours. Like this is like the pre-binge Netflix binge meal because you can't because that's the only thing that you can actually do efficiently. Anything
Yeah.
else is
Yeah.
over.
Yeah.
That becomes almost a right of people like take pleasure in that, right? I
Yeah.
guess it's
Yeah.
thing. I guess it's a thing how alcoholics must feel like people who like drink alcohol. I wonder they probably
Yeah. No.
they know they feel like crap, but they still do
Yeah.
it and they
Yeah.
plan for it.
Yeah. Which I think is going to indicate deeper, like there's deeper
Mm,
issues there. You know what I mean? And so, to talking about the alcohol,
mm,
and trust me, I know it firsthand, and I know
yeah.
it. Yeah, I know. So there's I guess it's this, right? Like why, like the way that I look at it, like, so that scenario that you just talked about,
Right.
like for me, like it's the adverse that I'm thinking about. Like, how can I do this thing that's gonna make me feel amazing, and I can do amazing things with it,
Mm,
right? So rather than go to the shrimp spot, I'm gonna hit a water fast for X amount of days, right? I'm gonna
okay.
push. I'm gonna push. I'm gonna push in that direction to see what outcomes look like. To see what outcomes look like there. You know what I mean? And so I think this is something that I really like exploring, man. I really like exploring. I like exploring cold plunges. I like exploring. It's kind of like that. I would say beating up the nuffs, but it's
Right.
like shoving it around.
Right.
You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
no, but I think you know how do we gain mastery over the self? I mean, that's again, those are all means, but the end is gaining mastery over the self, because then it's like, if we can't say no to things, then each thing that tastes sweet, quote
Mm,
unquote, tastes
right.
sweet, looking at something, listening to something, saying something, doing something, like, how do we pump the brakes on those things if all we're ever doing is giving the self? Again, that's just that's
Right.
just that's just me in
No,
knowing that.
that's definitely that's a great takeaway there. How does your like sleep like people talk about sleep and recovery and these kind of things.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
how do you manage like I know people like especially in our community that who have they're able to function like 4 hours of sleep. Like,
yeah,
how does your sleep routine look like? Because I feel like sometimes some people say if you sleep 8 hours a day, that's what recommended, but that's
yeah.
like a third of your life.
I know. Yeah, that's a tough one. I feel, and again, I think that it's individual,
Hmm.
so to speak. And what I met people that were on 10 to 2 and took a little nap after Fajr or
10
something
p.m.
like
to 2
that.
a.m.
10 p.m. to 2 a.m. and didn't break that. So for me, 6, I'm real good. Um, but also I feel like my rhythms change seasonally.
Yeah.
And I feel like in the winter, I make up for it. Sometimes in the winter, bro, I'm in bed at 7 o'clock.
Mm.
And I feel like I'm making up for, other times where you're on these like straight months of 4 hours. So, but I do feel like you feel it. You hit a wall. Your cognitive abilities are challenged for me.
Hmm.
Immune system is down. That's the big one for me. Is that definitely it hits my immune system, and it
And I get
compromises that. You know what I mean? So I think that is something. Once again, remember I was saying that there are things that I can have control over to
hmm
some degree. Obviously, I'm
right.
talking about, right,
Yep.
that I need to ensure is happening
Hmm.
for the well functioning of this machine or this
Yeah.
bot, however we want to call it, right? And so those are the things that hey, I'm sorry, man, don't call me, I'll call you. I'm going to bed because my body needs it, um, and that was something that I feel that, yeah, I can do 4 hours, and I do for periods of time, but I also know that that has to be made up. I got to pay that. I got to pay that. I got to pay that debt, so to speak.
Yeah. I think that one of the things that I've noticed in the summer times, I've been able to, the best time for me to hit the gym is like, so the kids are in, so in the summertime it's nice because the kids are not in school, so you don't have to worry about like getting them
Yeah.
up and making their lunch and all that stuff, which takes up time in the morning. my
Yeah.
my oldest daughter usually spends like a few weeks every summer. She's away right now with my parents in Ohio.
Okay.
So with that and Fudger coming in as early as it does, you have
Uh-huh.
to be, if you're catching the tail end, you're still up by 4:45, right?
Yeah.
So you get there, and then I think the best days are like you stay up, but you have to be asleep the night before by like
Yeah.
knocked out pretty early. Like Isha comes in, you pray, boom, you gone, right?
Yep. Yep.
Um, Summer's idea, and there's also no big sporting events. So you don't have a TV, so you don't have this problem. But like for me, it's just like I feel like I do spend too much time probably watching sporting events. To
Mhm.
be frank, and I think a lot of guys are, that's something we bond over, but some
Yeah.
things that am I do I did I really care? I mean, yeah, your hometown team won the NBA Finals again, but
Yeah.
I don't even know if you probably even knew
Yeah. 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 No, I
that.
did. I followed it. I followed it. I followed it.
Okay,
You know
you
what
know
I
what I
mean?
mean? But
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I didn't have a dog in the fight, but I still watched the
Yeah.
game. You know what I mean? It was like,
Mm,
oh, I'm gonna
mm,
watch that. I'm at
mm.
home. I'm gonna watch this game. So, but I noticed that you get up, you have the fudger, you'll maybe I'll have some pre workout that gets you caffeinated, and then you'll hit
Uh-huh.
the gym,
Yep.
and 6 in the morning, you're done by 7:30. You go to work, you feel good,
That's right.
and then you're kind of, it's just everything flows. And
Yep.
then if you're lucky, you can get out in time and go train jujitsu in the evening, right?
What's
That's a good
interesting,
day.
it's interesting you say that because now that my kids are it's been like 2 weeks that my girls have been out of school
Yeah,
because of that morning routine, like you mentioned.
right.
So now I've been taking the 7 o'clock class. My jujitsu class is at seven to
Okay,
eight.
yeah,
And it feels great, man. You know what I mean? Like 7 to 8, I
yeah,
can even hit some groceries and be
right.
back at my house at 8:30, showered up, and you know what I mean, ready to roll at 9, 9:15. I'm on the grind over here. But I think I've always been a morning person as well too. You know what I
Mhm,
mean? I've never been that like hang out late. See,
mm,
I just everybody in my family, I think it's always been, you get up and you head to work. But definitely that flow, I think, just in terms of flow, I mean in terms of just energy, you know what I mean, in the day is something that I really like. And like you said though, get up, make your salat, you get a little bit of, maybe you read some Quran, get some good stretching in. And
mhm.
like you said, it just feels good. It's only 6:20 right now. You
Yeah,
know what I
right.
mean? It's
I
six
know.
fifteen right now, and you've had a really good warm up. You're loose. Alhamdulillah. So you've hit, kind of, and I think of Quran as like mind and body. Like I think of it, I'm sorry, mind and soul.
Mine is
You
all
know what I
right.
mean? Kind of that's like a combo pack.
Right.
So and then you hit body, like I mean you're stretching, and then you go do some more body. And like you said, yeah, it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling. Um,
You started jujitsu what, 4 or 5 years ago?
for yeah, 2020 February of 2018.
Did you
Yeah.
have any experience with martial arts prior to that?
No, I wanted to.
Okay.
I mentioned to you I was joking, you know what I mean? But I was like, man, I used to watch Kung Fu Theater. It came on Saturdays. I don't know if you had that. We had Creature
I don't
Comfort
remember
Feature.
that. No, I
Yeah,
don't
the
remember.
Kung Fu Theater, man. But I've always loved, martial arts. Yeah, just something about that competitive nature in that way. Combat to me is just something that is it's powerful, man. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? To step in there with another human being that can do equal, if not superior, I don't want to say damage, but we'll say application of skills, right?
Yeah.
In that way. So yes, I've always loved it, but I always make excuses. Oh, I'm too long. I can't do that. It's not for me.
Hmm.
You know, and but I think so. I actually watched the first UFC on television. Like I watched it in '93,
Wow.
and
Okay.
and just was like intrigued because so I boxed a little bit when I was younger, but we've always watched boxing. We've like I
Ye-
said, like everybody, when we followed that whole glory time that I think about,
Right.
Sugar Ray Leonard,
Hmm.
Hagler,
Hmm.
Hearns,
Hmm.
you know, I mean, yeah, just have always watched boxing. So now all of a sudden, When MMA came in, UFC came in, I was like, wow, what was this? And just watching Hoist just like
Mhm.
wreck these guys, I was like, this is
Right.
crazy. And then unbeknown, in
Yeah.
2007, when I was living in the Emirates, I actually went to the ADCC, man. I went to
Right.
ADCC. I didn't even know. My friend was like, hey, you want to go to the jiu-jitsu tournament? I'm like, yeah, cool, let's go. I didn't even know, what it was. So yeah, so I feel like I've been doing jiu-jitsu in my head since 93.
Mm. It's when you made this when you add so okay, so break it down, you decided to add something to your plate with
Yeah.
jujitsu. And I think this is sometimes a lot of guys listening to this channel will be like, listen, that's all great, hunting and all this stuff. That all sounds fun. I want to do it. But I don't
Yeah.
have the bandwidth for it, or you're gonna get pushback from the family. When you add something like that to your routine, did you drop
Yeah.
something off? Or did you how are you able to convince the family that, hey, I'm gonna tie up some more bandwidth here?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things was strategically made it a program at the college here. So we introduced it at Zaytuna. So I was just
Okay.
like,
They gave her to work?
yeah. Sweetie, I got to go to work, sweetie. I'll see you in a bit. You know what I mean? Just salam alaikum. No, so yeah, we have a teacher twice a week. Tuesdays and Thursdays we had class
Right.
on campus.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to get it in that way. Pandemic obviously broke that up, and then so now I'm at a school which is about 10 minutes from campus. But inshallah, we're going to reintroduce it next, in the fall semester. But I do think it's true. I would say honestly, I'm not shooting my bow as much anymore, because I don't know. I mean, I don't know about you, but just something this kind of like, I call it like phase two of my jujitsu.
Mm.
It's just opened up
Mm.
understanding, application. I mean, I've just fallen in love with this thing, man. And here's the thing: you're a two stripe white belt, you said, or
Correct.
three?
Yeah. Two.
Two,
Two. Yeah.
bro. I'm a one. My Our first instructor didn't give any stripes. And then it was like when I came to the new school, I was kind of like, professor didn't accept any credit. So now I'm just, I didn't get any stripes.
Yeah.
And so now I've got one stripe on, but it's, it's, yeah, I mean, I'm enjoying it. And Professor, you got to connect with Adam Redzovic in Chicago, man. You got
Yeah.
to connect with him. He said you're gonna be a world champion, one stripe white belt. So because he's the longest standing one stripe white belt. That's what he said. Yeah.
Yeah. So, by the way, how did you like you're in California?
Yeah.
You hear about like what Ralph Gracie in the Bay Area.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
why do you come to Chicago to find a professor here?
So Adam is a friend, God bless him, and his family, of a friend.
Mm.
And so definitely, like, our the brother that we first started training with, brother Adisa Banjoko, Allah bless him and his
Mm.
family. He's a student of Half from a long time ago. His journey was a long time. So, and also my instructor right now
Yeah.
is that's his lineage as well
Okay.
too. So not Half directly, but he is from Rio, and he grew, and his black belt is from Hoyler.
Mm-hmm.
Humeta, right?
Yeah.
Humeta, if you know
Sure.
that organization in Rio.
Okay.
So that's their lineage. So that's kind of what I'm connected to. Now, I think for me, there's certain things, that I'm looking for as well too. I'm not looking for like, so here's the first thing: I'm going to come into a gym and be like, hey, for religious reasons, I don't roll with the opposite gender.
Yep.
And if you can get down with that as an instructor, that's great. If not, then it won't be my gym. Now, alhamdulillah, the professor that I'm with now,
Yeah.
and so those types of things, like rolling with that type of understanding, or whether it's salat or it's, just language,
Yeah.
swearing and stuff like that. I don't know. I gravitate to, or even the concept of ego and nafs, and not that it doesn't happen around Muslims, but
Right.
I had a dude ramp it up one day because I inadvertently hit him with a knee. You know what I mean? We're just in a scramble and just kind of grazed his knee. You know what I mean? And he tried to get like all crazy physical on it, rather than just be like, hey, that was a inadvertent mistake. Now I got clocked, and I had a big old black eye for 10 days, 2 weeks, by someone who hit me to inadvertently. Now I didn't go all crazy on that person because of that. It was
Right.
like, cool, I get it. You know what I mean? So I think, and now being in like a public gym rather than being with all Muslims here on campus, it's actually exposed me to that as well too. That, you know what I mean? People are going to do that. Then on how am I going to respond now?
Yeah.
right? Am I gonna come at him, and then it just continues to escalate? So it was interesting. I had to speak to some friends. But anyway, sorry. Getting back to that, yeah. So there's certain things I'm looking for in instructors, and just philosophically, man, we really connect. We Adam and I
Mhm.
connected, well philosophically, and understanding the art in a different level. And we talk. I mean, we talk 2 times a week, man.
Okay. There's a, you mentioned the hardest, when I was when I started looking at the academy too, and that's the one thing when they, um, brought me in for the trial class, and the professor. So, and the professor in my academy, Professor Christian Uflacher, he got his black belt from Master Carlos Gracie Jr. Right,
Junior.
Junior,
Yeah, and
right.
that's also from. So Adam is also from Carlos Gracie Jr.
Yeah. And then he's under, yeah, and I don't know how it works, their politics and stuff, but now he's more under Master Henzo Gracie, right? Because
Okay,
Henzo comes in and does a seminar for us once a year.
mashallah.
So what I was thinking, and his wife is also a black belt professor. So
Yeah,
and she's the one that gets you signed up and everything. So I asked her, like, hey, listen, this is one of the things that I'm not interested in enrolling with, like, some of the opposite gender. And she's like, yeah, we actually don't do that. She's telling me this. She's like, yeah, unless there's a, um, sibling or husband wife kind of combination, we can easily accommodate that. And most times you'll see that, and occasionally I have seen it, but 98% of the time the default is you're rolling same gender only, right?
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they, even on their ethics board, it's like about swearing and profanity and stuff. She's like,
Yeah,
yeah, because we have kids classes, we can't have a bunch of meatheads running around,
yeah,
right? They require, for example, that you can't even wear, sometimes you wear a gi and there's no
yeah,
shirt underneath. They don't allow
yeah.
it. You have to have
Mm,
a shirt
mm,
that comes up to neckline.
mm,
It's required
mm. Yeah,
under your gi. So so I saw that and I was like, this is just perfect. And the fact of the
yeah,
matter is, it's like a 15-minute drive from my house.
yeah,
The kids class is exceptional. For my girl, for my daughters, and eventually when the other two are of age, I'll throw them in.
yeah,
But I think that's the thing. And no, I think the only gripe I had was like when Ramadan hit, it was
yeah.
like you couldn't really roll
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
schedule.
it's
I
a
mean,
tough one. It's a tough one. I feel like same here. And there's some stuff that I'll do in my house just for body. Like I have a TRX inside of my
yeah,
office. I'm just looking at it right now, and
right,
I've got a little stationary bike. Actually, it's a bike with a treadmill,
yeah,
those roller things on the back, and foam rolling and stretching. So that's kind of like my Ramadan routine moves into there. I've rolled a couple of times. I've rolled full rolls, actually. I should say that, in Ramadan, and it's been okay. But then I'm kind of like, I would rather be using my time differently, and I'll just put it that way. As much as I
right.
love jiu-jitsu and but it's just, Ramadan is really something that I want to guard, in that way, and not let those things kind of creep into it, so to speak, right? Like I think about, like, if the ulama stopped teaching, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Imam Shafi'i
Yeah,
narrations, Imam Malik, like they actually did not teach during Ramadan.
yeah.
So I'm thinking to myself, like, there's something to that.
You talked a little bit, we touched upon, was like the mindset of the gym. I was talking to, by the way, to clarify, just because you have one belt, that doesn't mean anything. Versus, like, because every gym is different, I think, like you alluded to, on your belts. So my gym, I think the stripes are given based upon like classes, how much time you put in, right?
Mm-hmm.
um you know but then the belts is a meritocracy thing. It's like, how good are you
Yeah,
competent? He's not going to give you a blue belt just because you came to class for a year. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
You got actually got to know what you're doing. You got to have the competency to be a blue belt. So I think there might be a little difference of opinion how they do the stripes. So I wouldn't get
yeah,
hung up on that too much when they
yeah,
hear that Imam Dawood only has a one stripe and I got two. That doesn't mean I'm more competent. I definitely, if you're competing, I'm definitely like not even there yet. But I think there's a idea. I talked to my friends who are other gyms, and they're talking about how, like, oh, they're smack talking during the roll and this and that, and you know what I mean.
yeah.
And I find that the way our gym operates, it's a very traditional gym. It's like,
Uh-huh.
professor, everything is like, please. Every time instruction is like, during, okay, 10 like stretch right to left please, or hip escape please, like, please, there's a very
Yeah,
respectful kind of
yeah,
demeanor. When
yeah.
you tie your belt, turn away from the front, kind of thing.
Mm.
And people think about it like, there's this like cult tasawwuf
Yeah,
angle that I think
yeah,
is, because it allows, and there are people there who are a little bit louder, like, they're talking about, they'll be in the rent when we're changed. They're like, I'm coming for these upper belts, man. You know what I mean? But
Yeah,
most
yeah,
people in
yeah,
general,
yeah,
it's all about like, hey, I want to work technique. That's cool. How do you want to go? Hell, hey, I want to go a little, and if they want to go harder with somebody, they'll just stay with somebody else after class and do that. Right.
yeah,
So I
yeah,
think there's that.
yeah,
There's something very unique about, and I don't know if it's my lineage that how the professor comes in, because Professor Christian is Brazilian, right?
yeah,
He
yeah.
came up through Brazil, moved to Chicago. Well, I don't know, 15 some years ago, whatever he did, but you know, but I think that's the style of gym he has. Now it fits my personality too,
Yeah,
because you're also at
yeah,
age 40. I'm like, I'm not trying to get my teeth kicked in by some 20-year-old. You know what I
that's
mean?
right. Yeah, I
Um,
got that hashtag. I got to go to work on Monday. That's my other hashtag. You know what I mean?
right.
Like
You
I'm
come
not
in
trying
there,
to get hit judo, you know, hip tossed up to the rafters and then body slammed, on the mats because I got to go to work.
right, and exactly. So when we do judo throws, we're actually not throwing. Well, they'll
Yeah,
say, now if I say you can throw me, I want to work on my falls, they'll
yeah,
throw you. But
yeah,
usually the default is we're only going this much and we're pulling
yeah,
back, right?
yeah.
So as people are listening to this, they're like, okay, why is this relevant to me? Like, what? Now, jujitsu is just a hobby that has resonated for both you and I, right?
Yeah.
Um, when people are thinking about, but I think it's interesting because I think a lot of when you talk about masculinity, I
Hmm.
think that when guys, I think somebody should pick a combat sport. That's my
Hmm.
take. I'm not saying
Hmm.
it has to be jujitsu. It can be
Yeah.
boxing.
Yeah.
I think boxing is really hard.
Yeah.
Like from a
Yeah.
cardio point of view,
Yeah.
if you're like out of
Yeah.
shape, it will
Yeah.
kill you.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know what takes up the speed. I think BJJ is probably. I feel like BJJ is the entry point um into something. If you want to get into someone like me, I have no combat sports experience, never wrestled, nothing, no
Yeah.
boxing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably number of fights I've been in my life, one hand,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
That's my take on it.
Yeah.
How would you recommend people picking a combat sport if they were?
Yeah. Again, and I think again, the sport in of itself is a means. And so what's the end? Am I looking to improve my physical ability? Am I looking to defend? Am I looking to, you know what I mean? Like what am I trying to get out of it? Now, here's one of the things of why we chose jujitsu as well too at the college is I feel like most of these kids live in their head, right? They live in their minds. These are these are the achievers that you're talking about here at this college. They're incredible. They're incredible kids. So I want to get them out of their bodies.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, out of their heads and into their bodies in a way that's going to be a little bit different than soccer or basketball or something such as this, because I do think there are times that you may be put into a situation that you didn't want,
Mm-hmm.
anticipate, and it's better to what do they say? It's better to be a samurai in the garden to be a
Mm-hmm.
gardener at the time of war,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you learning situational awareness, you're learning things, adrenaline dump, these like dealing with emotions, these types of things and situations.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that jujitsu is something that does it in a way you're not getting punched in the face. You're not getting, striking is not something that's happening. That can be intimidating for people as well too,
Yeah.
right? So again, you have to decide the thing that works for you and what you want it for. And so for me, I mean, I think there's very varied reasons. Like I enjoy the need to be focused and calm amongst chaos,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
And that's something, the speed, how fast it's moving, where is it going, but yet I know and I can follow what's happening,
Right.
right? I love that. Because my mind, I feel, works in that way. It's like problem solving in real time. One, two, why I would say jujitsu again, as with other combat sports, but I think jujitsu is that choices. It teaches you in a very immediate way consequences for choices, and both positive and negative,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you didn't tuck your elbows in, someone just got an underhook and you got swept. You know what I mean? You didn't, no, whatever it is,
Yeah.
right? And so I think that is something that's very real. And I think what's very beautiful about it is that you have the ability within getting sub just to start all over and try that again. Um, and and um, and so again, that's going to be very different than taking a shot, you know what I mean, and being like laid out, or taking a, it's like you're just in the gym now and someone rips to the body. Like that's kind of hard to come back from
Right.
folks. You know what I mean? And so I think jujitsu is that pathway that is a little bit lighter for people to come through,
Sure.
but no less going to allow you to understand things, um, if needed, to defend yourself, or to get to you know what I mean, to get away, or to grab, or to whatever that is, in a way that's going to be, that can protect you, to protect yourself. So I think that's something that's really interesting. But I do agree with you that at some point there needs to be some sort of engagement in a martial art, and I think that kind of the confidence that it gives in one. I don't, like, I tell people, like, don't come to understand what you are or are not going to do in a real life scenario. Like, that's not the time you want to find out how you're going to deal with adrenaline. That's not the time you're going to have to feel like, learning to know how you're going to respond with your emotions and things like this, or how to throw somebody, or how to get thrown, or whatever that is. Don't have that happen in a real, like in a fight, basically what I'm trying to say.
Right.
And so I think that's something that's really, really important in what we're doing right now. And so I think, yeah, I could, yeah.
Yeah. How do you deal? So okay. So when did you realize? You mentioned you had an epiphany. So one thing I find myself, if I want to be honest, um, I probably feel like I don't love jujitsu as much as maybe some of my partners or like other people who like come to the gym. I enjoy it, don't get me wrong. I don't, but I also feel like I purposefully try to supplement myself with information about it. So I will listen to a podcast, or
Mm,
if I feel like, because sometimes I just like, I was telling my coach, I was in side control, right? And
mhm.
you feel like, okay, I feel like I'm heavy, right? And then dude just flings me right off.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
And I'm
yeah,
like, my knee is up on the dude's ear, like it's not working.
yeah,
You're talking about you're in defense. Sometimes I feel like I'm in defense all the time,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And then then I'll have to go listen to a podcast, or I'll go listen to like, so and I do the same thing with Islam. It's like when I feel like I'm in a rut, there's certain talks I can go listen to that get me kind of in the mindset, right?
yeah,
But I feel like I'm relying on that a lot, so I enjoy it. But it's like if I don't roll a few days, it's more like I am throwing money away if I don't go, right? So I try to go a
mm,
few times a
mm,
week, but
mm,
it's not like I feel like there's people who are obsessed.
yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
So, yeah, no, exactly what you're saying. So I think, so alhamdulillah, when I was in Chicago, when I saw you,
Yep.
for the seminar,
Yep.
there was a gentleman there, goes by the name of Black Rob, and he's been in Henzo. He's been with Master Henzo
Right.
for 22 years,
Right. Yep.
and knew Danaher. I think he said it a blue belt, maybe it was purple. I'm not sure, but very
Sure.
early on.
Right.
You know what I mean? He said, look, talking to me, he said, like, look, if you're like a hobbyist, so to speak, like he said, you don't have to do this for a job. You don't have to show
Yeah.
up every day, because my knee was a little bit, I don't know what happened, but hyperextended or something like that. So it
Right.
was really sore that weekend. And he said, if you're like professional, he said, and this is
Mhm.
what you do and it's your job, and you've got to show up. And so I think, if you're that guy, then cool, you're that guy. But also I'm like, I can not roll because my back needs another day to recover, or whatever
Right.
that is. But
Right.
like you said, I'm going to put the time in a different place. And I think that's another thing that I'm doing right now that I didn't do the last time, is I actually do a lot of studying, I think anyway, but very specific,
Mhm.
right? So like you're saying, I really try to play with those things, right? Like,
Mhm.
where is it that I just a little adjustment here, that shoulder right there, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, that's where that pressure is actually makes you feel like you can't breathe. You know what I mean? Or hey, I don't need to be here all day. This is just a you know what I mean, a staging ground, because right from there, it's I'm looking for a low neon belly to come across to mount.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So I think it's understanding those things. I think at times in at the white belt level, we get to a spot and we just like, and then we like hunker down and hold it.
We
But
don't
they're
know what to
really
do
they're
next.
transitions. Exactly. It's
You
because we
know,
don't know
you're
what to
like, oh,
do
like, oh,
next.
you forget,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So you think the epiphanies you're having when you're like, oh, this little detail switch here, that's when you're like, oh, that's
Huge,
when
huge,
you get that, then you're like, because they talk,
huge.
you have black belt professors talk about like when the light bulb goes off, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think I'm still waiting for the light bulb to go off.
No,
So,
here's the thing. You said it's been a year.
yeah,
No, it's bro. It's again. I'm only I think I'm around a lot. Like I'm
yeah,
around a lot of higher belts as well
yeah,
too. And I
right,
have friends that are professional fighters that
right,
fight and you know
right,
one and other stuff like this. So UFC as well.
yeah.
And so I yeah, I get to have conversations with these guys. And so I, definitely I kind of I really enjoy these like minor details that are just like subhanallah, man. Because you're constantly like you're unlocking, sorry, like you're locking and unlocking, locking and unlocking, locking and unlocking, right? So then the locking and unlocking is just these real minor details that you know what I mean, that you know when you windshield wiper your foot across and then you drag their leg to
Mhm.
open it, you know what I mean, a bit
Right,
more,
right.
to be able to enter in, or I mean like you know whatever it is, blocking, scooping an underhook as you're coming through on a knee cut pass, or I mean just really just things that 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 can prevent a person from doing what they want to do to counter, right, to counter what you're doing. I'm really finding that to be fascinating right now, that I think, and also looking for like what we call it, like fork attacks, right? So you got
Mm,
to choose either, like I just mentioned. So that's a sequence that I like to do a lot.
yeah.
Side control. From
Mhm.
side control, I'm going to go low knee on belly. I'm going to
Yeah.
come into the mount, and then I'm going to come into your collar
Right.
for a cross collar choke. But that's a bait. If you
r-
don't take it, you're going to get cross collared, choked. But
Right.
if you take it and you grab both of my arms, I'm coming in for an S mount for an arm bar, right?
Mm,
So you got to choose. You're going to choose either one, but both of them are an attack. So I think these are things that as you begin to progress and you
mm,
can link those more and more, it just becomes really nice. Alhamdulillah, I had my first transition the other day where I shot a triangle.
mm,
The triangle didn't work.
mm,
Then from the triangle, I went to the armbar. The armbar didn't work. And then I got
mm,
to an omoplata and tapped the person on an omoplata. But
mm.
you hear about this.
Right.
Then all of a sudden, this like, dang, that thing actually worked. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think when you come out of where you are right now, and it doesn't take a while, man. It doesn't take a long time. Um, it it it's really, I don't know. I'm just having a lot of fun right now.
Would you say how like because one thing I struggle with, I was telling you before the show, is like conditioning, right? Have you felt cardio been a struggle for you, or conditioning, or is that something that you've been um it's been easier for you because you've generally been a physically fit guy your whole life?
I would say probably like because of my diet and and just really, you know what I mean? Like, so I do spend time here in the mountains as well too. So I'm like carrying a 450-pound pack around at 10,000 feet, and you know what I mean. That'll prep you
Mm,
for this, and so I think that just having alternatives to now. I spoke to your friend. He's like, well, look, there's no substitute for jujitsu cardio except for jujitsu, and I get it because you know what I mean. The amount of I heard some the other day as well too. I don't know if it's true or not, but I think it sounds about right. They said in a 5-minute roll, you have about 8 bursts, right? You can get about 8 explosive like
mm,
bursts. It's you got
mm.
to choose them wisely,
Right.
And so that's why I'm saying if you're doing that sustained, like I'm saying, I'm carrying a pack at 10,000 feet. it's 50-pound pack and
Right.
I'm hunting or I'm hiking or whatever that is.
Right.
It's going to be very different if I need to like sprint with that pack on or something. You know what I mean? That would be the
Yeah.
equivalent of like having explosive. So, but I would say that, yeah, no, there's times like you mentioned earlier when we were talking, bro, I've tapped under pressure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Truth be told, you know what I mean? You're gassed.
Yeah.
My man's got 60, 50, 60, 80 pounds on you and
Right.
just gets that right place in the solar plexus and bears down. Nah,
Hmm.
bro.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
it's time to get out. I think and you think about like you listen to like the Gracie diet or John Jacques Mikado. He talks about like
Mm-hmm.
their diets are like they sound very similar to like how
I
you're
know.
eating. It's not like
Yeah.
a traditional, maybe even a bodybuilder. And the other thing I thought about you that was a thing is I got a friend who at my gym, he within a year he was blue belt, right? Coming
Yeah.
5-6 days a week, does
Yeah.
nothing else. But I was talking to him like last week, and like, hey, what do you do for work and stuff? And he like hates his job.
Mm.
He's like, they give me good benefits. I'm like, he's like, don't get me wrong, my job sucks. I hate it. It's super boring. So I'm like, for someone like that, the only thing in his life that gives him
Mm.
meaning is
Mm.
jujitsu.
Mm. Yeah. Is he married?
So no,
Okay. Yeah.
so he's not married. He probably I don't know where he is from a religious point of view.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
doesn't give off those kind of vibes. It seems like jujitsu is literally the
Yeah.
thing that he looks forward to over anything
Yeah.
else. So
Yeah.
that's something I think I've got to think about as well. Because me, I've got like career,
Yeah.
podcasting,
No,
family.
definitely. And yeah, there's some kids, there's not kids, there's people that I know that are going twice a day. You know what I
Right, I
mean?
know, right.
Like, I see him in the morning class and I speak to your friend. I was like, yeah, I rolled with so and so. I was like, huh, he was in the morning class with me. You know what I mean? So definitely there's that aspect of it. But like, yeah, I mean, Zaytuna in and of itself, bro, is enough that
Yeah,
keeps us busy. Now we got family, you know what I
right.
mean, and they're at different stages, and so yeah, I learned a long time ago, like not to look, and I tell the students here as well too, don't
Yeah,
do that. Like, don't compare yourself to another person. Why? Because unless you have lived exactly how they've lived, you've been prepared exactly how they prepared. Like if your lives were exactly like how would we say, like in sync, or the preparation was exactly the same, then
right.
okay, we could. But if not, then you're comparing dates and pomegranates, as I like to say. You know what I
As
mean?
we start to kind of like wrap up here, I think there's so one thing you mentioned, you got exposed to BJJ essentially. Hoist Gracie was like that was against Shamrock, right, in '93, like 30, like it was like
Uh,
30 seconds or something, was it? It was quick,
yeah, yeah. It might have been pre-Shamrock. Was it finals him with Shamrock? Maybe it was.
you know.
I want to think it was. Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and for me, so you knew about it then. When I moved to
yeah.
Chicago in 2008, I had Eddie Redzovich. I met him at a Munger class.
Yep.
And he's a low key kind of.
Yeah,
He's not the same guy you see on Dean's show. People who know,
yeah,
he's
yeah,
like, but he's a low key guy, still friendly.
yeah,
And some of my friends were training with him at the time, and they were telling me, why don't you come up? And I was like, I don't like. It just didn't register. Like for
yeah,
some reason, someone tells you should try something out,
yeah,
and you're not even thinking about it. It's not. You're like on the opposite wavelength. You just like whatever. Um, and you'd heard that like in the community, like Mufti Kamani did BJJ, Eddie, obviously Adam, these guys,
yep,
and then all of a sudden you realize, and I think about the one thing that I have a real problem with, for myself, and we know that Qadr is true, like predestination.
yeah,
We don't want to read reflecting back, but I always think about, man, if I started in 2008 with Eddie, man, where would I be right now?
yeah,
Right. There's a
yeah,
bad, like I have a bad habit of that. How do you, and then I think about you, you're telling me you knew about 93. So
yeah.
that was like 30 years ago.
I
Right. um, how do you
yeah.
deal with that? Like, I think that's
Well,
an
I feel
internal
like,
struggle.
yeah, like a lot takes you in different places, right? Like, so think about that. Like that's 93, 96. I'm living in or like, yeah, like 96. Like I'm in South Africa and I convert to Islam. So it's like, you know what I mean? Then I go on this whole journey of that, going to Damascus and studying. So I feel like we're exactly where we're supposed to be at a
Mhm.
time when we're supposed to be there.
Right.
And I've really come to understand that and embrace that with this idea of qadr.
Right.
And so yeah, I mean, would I love to have had um uh started at that time, and I love to surf. I love the ocean. Man, I would have killed it if I would have been in Brazil, right? Like I would have, but who knows what that would have been? And honestly, I don't even go down that path because I feel like if it were to be, it would have been, right? And it
Right.
wasn't, so it's not, right? And so that's how I kind of shut the door on those thoughts. And as much as it is difficult now, my hip is hurting me, my back hurts, my knees get tight, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, it would have been fantastic to pick this up at 25 or 30 or whatever that is, but good Lord didn't write it then, you know what I mean? He wrote it now.
And I think the takeaway, I hope for people listening, for again, for guys, you're like you're looking to improve themselves. It's funny because, man, I remember early in my marriage, my wife was telling me, "Hey, I think you should take up a hobby," and she wanted me to take up like something like productive, like woodworking or something, that kind of thing. Like
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like 2000, it's like maybe like 10 years ago or something, you know. And so I remember I watched a documentary called Just for Kicks or something on Netflix. It was
okay,
a sneakerhead documentary.
okay,
And so to me, it was just like, you know what? I used to have a love for sneakers as a kid, but I couldn't afford it because there was something
yeah,
you alluded to earlier that sometimes there's always things you wanted to do, but you never got to do them for whatever
yeah,
reason, right?
yep, yep,
So I got into the sneaker game hard in
okay,
2013, right? And kind of like went a little nuts.
yeah,
And it's sort of calm. That's why the name of the show is called Sultan and Sneakers. That's kind of like the part of it comes from that. But and recently it's like, well, I have enough pairs now, right?
yeah,
And they're worth
yeah,
money. The guys that you
yeah,
don't realize is like, oh, it's
yeah,
actually a productive hobby. So he switched over to like maybe, I want to, you know, up my dress game a little bit.
yeah,
How I look.
yeah,
Again,
yeah,
that's still a hobby, like men's fashion or something.
yeah,
It's a hobby that
yeah,
people should like if they are
yeah,
interested in it. So I think people should look and shouldn't be like, listen, if someone's listening to this and this BJJ thing you guys are talking about is completely not resonating at all,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
But I'm like, but surely there's something that you could do that you want to do that you're interested in, and it's not just changing diapers all day, right?
yeah,
Don't tell me that's your
yeah,
hobby,
yeah,
right? So,
yeah,
I think push that, and then and I think going back to it, I think from a spiritual point of view, like ask Allah for like some guidance or stuff, because
yeah, yeah,
if somebody would have told me like I always had an interest in podcasting, for example, because I've listened to podcasts for over since 2008, I want to say seven, like way back before anybody was like. I remember some old school stuff that's still around. I still listen to, but the medium I've always enjoyed it, and
yeah,
I had ideas for starting it, but then when it
yeah,
fell into my lap the way it did, and then you realize, oh, I actually enjoy this, and people actually like some of this content, right?
yeah,
Which you were kind of like surprised by, you're like. It always it still blows my mind sometimes when I meet somebody and they're like, "Oh man, I love your show," or this and that.
mashallah.
Sometimes I think it's just like sometimes you have to. It's like, but like, what are you pushing yourselves towards? I think it's like if you feel like you're in a rut, then you got to step back and be like, all right, is there something I want to do? What is it?
Yeah,
Where am I
yeah,
lacking? And then let's go attack that, right?
yeah. It's interesting because for me, like bow hunting as well too, and then becoming Muslim. So I think we were just picking up the bow. Like
Yeah.
once I learned it was like Sunnah, or then even BJJ for me as well too. It's like grappling is a Sunnah of the Prophet Islam. So I'm looking at it in that from
Mm,
that aspect as well. And I
yeah.
remember being in Medina,
Right.
and we went to this place, and the brother there who was taking us, we were on this tour. He was like the Sahaba, the Prophet Islam would come here and he would swim
Mm,
and he would hunt gazelle with the Sahaba. I don't know, just like that connection was just so powerful to have that connection. I think for me also that's why grappling
mm.
um over other things for me as well too is have that kind of that prophetic blessing, so to speak, in the art. That's something that I think about.
You mentioned earlier that when you went on Umrah, some brother got motivated. Like when you go on a place like Umrah, how do you manage like because you're kind of like you can't pack. I'm assuming you're not packing suitcase for the food.
I have.
What?
But yeah, no, I have. But no, but the thing is also I just the circle of what I eat becomes much smaller. You know what I mean? That's what it is. Because you're only there for a limited, like what, like, we'd be there for like 10 days, 12 days. Um so yeah, so the circle, and also I just feel in Umrah in general, like how often you eat is cut by 2/3,
Right,
um
right. Because you're there for a mission.
yeah, and just, you're like, and you kind of like a day and night in verse. There's
Hmm.
like a, what I mean, you're up with the ibadah in the night, and through the fajr you come, you eat breakfast, you go to sleep, and maybe you get like, you know um dinner, so to speak, which
Right.
is just going to be something very light or quick.
Yep.
um and so I think that's um makes it easier, so to
Yep.
speak, right? You
Sure.
don't have a lot of downtime,
Right.
and and then the tank, you know what I mean? Inshallah, the tank is being filled up with the barakah of dates and
Exactly.
zamzam and other
Yep.
stuff such as that.
Yeah. So, if people want to reach out to you, or I know you've had things in the past where you've done like retreats.
Mhm.
Are those still in the pipeline? If people want to
Yeah,
benefit from
I
those.
think COVID has really, just put a bump in the road for so much. And inshallah ta'ala, I think this year we won't, full transparency. My wife and I have, inshallah, my wife, but we're having a child next Sunday.
Next
Is the due
Sunday.
date. Sorry, is the due date. Next Sunday is the
Inshallah.
due date. Sorry, but
Mubarak. May Allah bless you.
alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I think for this summer is a little bit out off. You know what I mean? Because of other commitments. So, but yeah, I mean, these are something. I actually, to be honest with you, man, I'd love to organize a jujitsu retreat. Like I see these retreats that are happening, and I talked to Adam about it, and
Yeah.
it's something I think would be really amazing. At like a Dar al Islam in New Mexico or something like that. I think would
Right.
be like in my mind, and I know we've done one there before.
Mm.
On I did a youth retreat for a couple of years. And we had the brothers come in from California at that time, back in like 2003 or four or something like
Right.
that. They
Right.
they, they drove out mats and from California, and we did
Mm.
it. We did some jujitsu during that week as well too.
So you're saying you had a daughter that just turned 20, so you're like doing it all over again now.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we thought we were done with diapers, and you know what I mean, and
Wow, that's
car seats and all that.
yeah, but how was that? Like, was it something that's like? Because sometimes I look at my 3-year-old now, and I'm like, so my soon to be 9-year old, I'm looking at old pictures because we took her to Umrah when she was like 3, and I'm looking at
MashaAllah.
pictures, and I'm just like, how she used to sound when she was talking, and I was like, man, those days are gone. And I was this
Yeah,
3-year old, like, yeah, you're the last hurrah right here.
yeah, yeah,
But you're
yeah,
saying maybe you're like,
yeah.
hey, it don't gotta be like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we've been like the family, like, hey, we're gonna plan for this, you know what I mean? And Sheikh Hamza said something the other day to me, and he was like, look, when Allah wants to bring a human being into the world, he'll facilitate it however he sees fit. So I was like, okay, Alhamdulillah, that's it.
Nice, nice. And
That's
yeah,
exactly what happened.
because I think one thing I would like to benefit from you as far as before is when that time comes again, the whole hunting thing. I think that's something
Yeah,
that is
yeah.
it's something that intrigues me. That I think my wife likes the idea of as well. Hey, like sourcing your own
Cool.
meat,
And
going out there.
you're in a great state. Illinois is a
Really?
great state for deer hunt.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
yeah,
Okay.
you're in a great state. Pheasant, deer, salmon, trout. Yeah.
So how do you like if that's something that I want to get into? How do how would you start? Like, because with
The,
jujitsu you can find
the,
an academy, right?
Yeah, yeah. So the first thing I would say is that you have to get your hunting license. You know what I
Okay.
mean? And that's why I tell people, like, to me, that's the like separating the wheat from the chaff. When folks are like, I want to get it, I want to be down. Like, okay, great, go get your hunting license. I don't hear from them again. So there's kind of like two stages. And now you have to do like you can look at an online course,
Yeah.
and then you'd have to go to a place, and you'd have to connect with a fish and game warden,
Right.
and you did sit and they proctor an exam, you take the exam. And I heard now they're even doing those exams online as well too. So
Right.
the first thing to be able to get your hunting license, and actually normally firearm and a bow are two different licenses.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I assume it's more difficult with a bow.
it is.
Yeah.
It is definitely. And it has its own merits. You know what I mean? I choose it because I enjoy the challenge, to be honest with you. Like I really enjoy that challenge of a bow. Like I think about like you're basically having to get into this animal's house, right?
Mm,
And you're going to harvest that animal undetected in its house. And so to
right.
me, I just think that's a pretty.
That's pretty cool.
I really, yeah, I really enjoy that challenge.
And what about your kids? Have they been able to take that up as well?
Yeah, they've come with me when they were younger. I think it's just circumstantially, it's been a little bit challenging in the places that I've gone to. I've really traveled. California's a little bit is a little bit challenging. It doesn't have the type of game I feel that you have in other places. Mule deer, and it's tough. I mean, at a minimum, mule deer are at 5,000 feet elevation, so you're up. You know what I mean? You're up high, and you know it's challenging. So I think to for them to come out for that. Hopefully they'll be able to come on a deer on a whitetail hunt, which is a little bit easier, which is the deer that you'd find out in Illinois.
Hmm.
This year is pretty interesting. There's certain areas that are land management and hunting. Only like a limited number of tags
Right.
are given out. And
Yep.
alhamdulillah, brother and I, we after 8 years of putting in for a tag, we got a tag for this area up in the mountains here. It's about 6 hours right on the Nevada border.
Right.
So we're excited about that for this year. We pulled the tag.
But it would also sounds like maybe there's also because sometimes a friend of mine just started deer hunting in Ohio. That's where I'm
Mhm.
from, and
Yeah,
like you go
good,
through
great
seasons.
state as well too.
So is
I've
it?
hunted in Ohio.
Hey, okay,
Yeah, drove out from when we were at Dartmouth. Drove out from New Hampshire and hunted a week out there.
okay. So you generally, and the thing is, as a commitment, as from a time commitment point of view, it's not like a daily grind like jujitsu or lifting. It's
No,
just
no, no,
like
no, no. It's a
you're.
window.
It's a window, and
Yeah.
but again, maybe a good start would be to like go with somebody who knows for a week.
Yeah, yeah. First of all, find out when the season is,
Yep.
right? So that's why I say it's a window because literally hunting season begins on this day and it begins on that and it ends on that day.
Right.
Now it can be that grind because you're just crafting your how do I say you're improving your craft throughout the year.
Like how to aim.
I mean, so
Right.
yeah,
Shoot.
how to shoot, how to like, and again, it's funny is I had a brother and he was like, target practicing. He was like, bang, 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 bang. And he said the first time that deer came in front of him, man, he was like, he shot and it was an easy chip shot. He could have hit it, but he was like, this ain't, when that deer's in front of you. And he said, it ain't like just standing flat footed on a surface and, what I mean, shooting a 40-yard arrow at the target.
Yeah, man.
It's a bit different. So just preparing, prepping for those things. So yeah, let's stay in touch about that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Whatever guidance I can give on that.
Yeah, I
And
think there's a lot of food for thought here. I think listeners out there, viewers out there, if you have any questions, definitely hit me up. Info at sultansneakers.com. You can follow Imam Dawood on Instagram. And where else are you? You were doing some stuff on YouTube for a little bit, right?
yeah, I was. I'm really kind of hoping to get back into it. I don't know. I guess I need you to what I mean to kind of like prod me and tell me to get going on it. I enjoy it. It's just it's time consuming. I think as well too.
Yeah,
Editing your stuff it
it
takes
is.
takes a
It's
while.
what's your motivation behind it?
I like the artistic side, man. I like putting out content. So I like the content, getting a
Ye-
message out, but I also like
Right.
trying to do it in a manner that is like artistic as well too.
Yep.
I've always enjoyed filmmaking and
Right.
being around that and film in general. And just like I just think there's a great way to get that message out in a way that's beautiful
You're right.
and creative.
Yeah, for sure. And maybe I'll definitely reach out to you specifically. I'll let the baby show up first. Get your bearings about yourself.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll have to come out to California or something. My father-in-law used to be into fishing down in Mississippi because that's where
Okay.
my wife grew up in Mississippi. I
Okay.
guess catfish and all that stuff is big down there.
Yeah.
But maybe start with something. I feel like fishing is maybe a lower barrier to entry,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So no promises, but I've been invited to Illinois this year in November to hunt. So
Okay.
maybe there'd be an opportunity for you to come out and just kind of peep game, you know what I mean?
Okay.
As when that happens.
All right, for sure, for sure. Is there anywhere else people you like people to reach out to you at, or is IG like the preferred
I
method?
would say, yeah, Instagram is a spot from there. And then if they hit me with a DM, I can just, you know what I mean? They can check me of Dawood.Yasin at gmail.com if they wanted to reach out in that way.
Cool, sounds good. Well, listeners out there, again, you can follow us. This will be on YouTube, and then also on the audio platforms wherever you're listening. And if you want to support the channel, you can do so at patreon.com/Sultan Sneakers. For my special guest, Imam Dawood Yasin, I'm your host, Mahin the podcaster, signing off.